Welcome to the Center of Light Radio with spiritual teacher, intuitive, musician, composer, and best-selling author of The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, your host, Keith Anthony Blanchard.
Coast to coast, pole to pole, all around the world on the internet. Thanks to the marvel of technology, I'm coming at you live from a little guest house in Memphis, Tennessee. This is Keith Anthony Blanchard back from vacation, and you're listening to Center of Light Radio, Center of Divine Unfoldment and Reinforcement. I needed that breakaway. Went to Gatlinburg to the Smoky Mountains with family. My son, Linda, a couple other folks had a really good time. It was very sweltering hot, but the break away from, quote, reality was needed. Welcome, Center of Light Radio, the superhighway to knowledge for that which is most important. And that is empowering you with the tools that you need so you can have the best life possible. Well, R.P.M program is doing well. If you want to check out my recognized plugin and manifest program, it's my lifelong work. You can go to centeroflightradio.com. Right-hand side at the bottom, you will see a subscription form. Fill that out. Not only will you get a phenomenal newsletter program, I will not send you junk, my promise to you, but also I will have your information and will send you more information about my R.P.M program. It's my lifelong work, as I mentioned, and I'm 100% absolutely sure, I guarantee that this program will change your life, not from the perspective that you are broken and you need to be fixed, but from the perspective that you want to expand into something that is greater than where you might be at this point in your life. I am very confident about that, and I want to offer that to you through this one-year program. You will get installments from me once a month. You have your contacts, direct contact with me. I'll be glad to work with you on a personal basis. So make sure you check that out. Just to the left of that, you will see a movie banner titled "And the Meek Shall Inherit the Earth." The prophecy realized. It's parallel with what's happening in the world right now, but it will help you see things from a different perspective, to not get so involved in what you think may be happening, all the negativity, all the terrorism. You know, these are words, of course, we use to describe what's going on, but the connotation can be so strong. It's very easy to get sucked into that world of negativity, and this movie, at no cost to you, will help you to gain perspective and understanding. Also, make sure you should go to, when you're at Center of Light Radio. Ooh, I've been off too long. I'm starting to fumble on my words. When you're at centeroflightradio.com, make sure you check out the archives. You'll find that under video blog archives. It has all my shows since the very beginning, which is about a year and a few months now, thanks to Inception Radio Network for having me aboard. And I think as of now, we have a listening audience of downloads, live listeners, and all that cool stuff of over 1.25 million. So I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you all for such numbers. To call into the show today, dial 888-919-2355. 888-919-2355. Remember, if you're not at home or by your computer at any point and you want to hear Center of Light Radio, you can go to the App Store on your phone and download the Inception Radio Network app for free. Everything is right there in the palm of your hand. Chat room, listen live, link, news, podcast, and much more. There are many ways to connect to Center of Light Radio and Inception Radio Network for sure. Also, I just got news from a dear friend of mine by the name of Anjana. She told me that Swamiji Viswayogi is going to be coming back to Memphis, or back to the States, I think in August, somewhere around August 20th, give or take. And you can bet I'm going to do everything in my power to get Swamiji Viswayogi, God-realized man, back on Center of Light Radio. And I think the theme he is about this year is purifying the earth, saving the earth by purifying the waters. So we see if we can get Swamiji on Center of Light Radio for that. Of course, it's going to be a phenomenal broadcast. And now it's time to get down to Center of Light Radio business. I really love the topic we have for today's show, but I also really love my guest. She's been on Center of Light Radio for quite a few times. She's always packed full of knowledge, always packed full of fun and ideas of how to see things differently. And I'm glad she's here today on Center of Light Radio. My guest is Susannah Furr, and we will be discussing Wake Up and become your multi-dimensional self. Susannah Furr, MED, is a licensed professional counselor with 25 years of experience in the counseling field. In addition to counseling, she has taught many courses in meditation, attuned others in Reiki, facilitated workshops and retreats, and utilizes her highly developed intuition to conduct intuitive consultations. Susannah's mission to be a loving witness and guide for others who are awakening their hearts and seeking to balance and integrate the fragments of the self into wholeness. You can find more of my guests at www.nowawaken. Excuse me, this is kind of strange for me. www.nowawakenow.com. Susannah Furr, welcome yet again to Center of Light Radio.
Good evening, Keith. It's great to be with you again.
Yay, I'm glad you're back.
Yay.
Thank you. I was going to read your website address, and I thought I was going to say Now Awaken, and then I used the N too quickly, and then it'd be Now Awaken Ow.
I know.
So it's nowawakennow.com, and that's how you find more information about this awesome, powerful guest.
Yeah, the way that I like to think of it is it's like a heartbeat. If you see the now in small letters, lowercase letters, awake in all big caps, and the now in little, in lowercase, and awake in big caps. It's sort of like, the heartbeat that you see on the monitor. And that's what that's kind of about, is just waking up into our heart area. And when you were reading one of the things that I have on my website about my mission is to help people welcome fragments of self back into wholeness, into a whole self. And of course, that's the topic thing I always talk about. Pretty much it all comes back to that, is the fragments that I were referring to are really the different dimensions of who we are. And when we wake up in this reality and become conscious, then we become aware of all these different parts of ourself, fragments, dimensions, whatever you want to call them. And once we do that, then we can bring them all together into one whole being and become this expansive, multidimensional self, which is our topic for tonight.
I love this topic because throughout my life, I've had blessed opportunities to actually touch that part of my whole self. One such experience was many, many years ago. I remember in sleep states of consciousness, I became full blown aware. And it was like I was looking at, if you can imagine going to a movie theater, and in the movie theater, you may have 20 screens, but you're looking at only one. And I remember being at that aspect of myself, having all these different movie screens around me, or my different lives, and I'm looking at this one very intentfully. And I remember asking myself the question, why am I watching only this movie when I have all these different bandwidths and frequencies around me? Because I can see that these different lives that I can peripherally were all very, very active, but I was hyperfixed and hyper-focused on the one that I'm living in now. And so I've had opportunities to play or experience myself in a whole way, especially in India. So is this what you're referring to, that we begin to become conscious of all the different layers of our own onion, so to speak?
Absolutely. That is exactly what I'm talking about. I even have the word onion written down on a piece of paper right here. About the different layers and how we just peel those away, or we become aware of all the layers. And my big question now here, I love that you were talking about it in terms of, watching a movie screen and these different views on these different, on the screen. Here's what I am studying within myself and meditation and all that, is like, what is it that makes us fixated on this one particular self? And why do we fixate on one and live through that whole life from birth to death? And that seems to be the predominant one, even when we are aware, like you were in your experience, of these different timelines or different dimensional selves. And so I'm going to use those two words interchangeably, timeline or dimension, because, and then we'll go into the other thing. We can talk about really what a dimension's, what it is. But I'm using it in terms of just the different experiences and different lifetimes that we are living simultaneously, and that they are in and of themselves just another plane of existence or another dimension. It's a fascinating topic, right? And it's really what I spend a lot of time thinking about and meditating on, and seeking to expand my awareness and my consciousness.
It's a fascinating topic, and it's almost limitless because, how do you begin to describe or have a conversation or dialogue about wholeness and multidimensionality if you're not living from that space to find the words to use it, to describe it, to talk about it?
I know, just grasping at it, basically. We can academically, you and I understand, and we can have these experiences like that one you had. I think a lot of times we can have in our waking life through meditation, through prayer, through visioning, through journeying, like in shamanic journeying with drumming, all kinds of ways that we can put ourselves into an altered state of consciousness, which is really what we're talking about when we say altered state, is expanding our awareness from the third dimension into the fourth and the fifth, and perhaps even higher than that. I know a lot of people are expanding and experiencing their sixth dimensional selves and on. So this is, it's all about really what we're talking about is the consciousness and how we have these different awarenesses and different focal points on each dimension. And basically all that is just organizing an existence according to its own vibrational rate. So, we know the first dimension is really that one point, which is considered the mineral kingdom. And that and then the second one is a point and a line. And that is considered really kind of where our lower brain, when we talk about the reptilian brain, and it's the plant kingdom and the lower animal kingdom and our own human lower brain consciousness. And then the third dimensional consciousness is really predominantly what most humans are existing and working with and living in now, and that's just that where we are. It's part of the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, and it's where we're aware of time and space. We're really affected by time and space and cause and effect and duality. Female, masculine, feminine, night, day. So it's a plane of existence and consciousness. It's very polarity oriented. And this is really mostly where we're centered now. And what's interesting is when you and I were writing about what's the topic, and you mentioned earlier about what's going on in the world and this increase in violence and increase in instability and socially and in the political arena and what's going on there. And, it's so amazing because it's really kind of a culmination of several generations or several hundred years of being kept in the third dimension for the most part, and in the fourth dimension as well. We kind of can't help but go to the fourth dimension because that's in our dream world. That's a lot of what we do in our dream world. And again, in the shamanic journeying and that kind of thing, it's called the astral plane. But, you and I talked about this before, about how we were living in a culture that's very third dimensionally oriented, and there are powers that be that want to keep it that way, because the more multidimensional we become in our consciousness and our awareness, then the more empowered we are, and the more we see options and other ways of being, and we're not just these automatons and good little consumers that go out there and work a job and, to pay the taxes and all of that stuff, right? So we're at that point where that's falling apart, and people really are waking up. I mean,
It's
people
really falling apart. It doesn't take.
really.
You can look out in the world right now and see
Yep.
the chaos. Now, there is order in chaos, and you have to look for it. And when you see the order in chaos, then things get a little easier in your perception. We won't tend to judge so much what we thought previously was happening. Because if you, again, as I say often, if we can liken what's happening in the world to a divine ladle that's scooping all of the crap, all the negative stuff out of the pot. In order for that to happen, it has to rise to the top to be filtered out. And I think that the world has had enough. In fact, people talk about, I don't ever talk about politics, but just to make an example, certain rallies that happen, the supposed peaceful people are now becoming violent. And people say, what about these liberals or whoever? And I think they're supposed to be the peaceful ones. It's because people are pissed off. They had enough. And it's just all changing. And people you never thought violent are becoming violent. People you never thought peaceful are becoming peaceful. And like I always said, if your best ploy, no matter who you are, of course, always stand up for what you believe in, whatever standing up means to you. But our best ploy to help things come along more smoothly is to get out of the fight. Whatever that fight is, if you don't want to be a part of the karma of the fight, get out of it.
Well, really it is. I mean, and by getting out of it, upon our topic tonight, it's like expanding into a higher awareness and consciousness. Like the fifth dimension, it's not a polarity dimension. It's not one of duality. And that one, it's all about unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness. It is unconditional acceptance. I mean, it is not a polarity level of awareness. And that's where when we feel the call of these higher qualities, that's that higher dimensional self that we already are. We already, like you were saying, you gave a great example. You're seeing all these different selves on the screen and you're focused in on this one. And that's what's happening. We have all of these different selves and we're mainly focused on the 3D or 4D because we're learning lessons in this plane. We're learning, our soul is learning to grow through the lessons that the earth plane has in the third and the fourth dimension. And we're really moving to the higher ones, and we're feeling those higher dimensional parts of ourselves feeding us that energy and giving us dreams or coming in visions or in our meditations and helping us to raise our vibration. We have to have a practice. We have to do things we actively do, practice, and intentionally do to raise our vibration. You and I can probably talk about a lot in the next 45 minutes, which is really what I hope we can do because it is the shit really is. I hope I could say that word, hitting the fan right now. We're seeing it. It's been building and building. That paradigm, that third and fourth dimensional paradigm, is collapsing in on itself. And we're all scrambling around. People are going, well, what do we have to do next? We're trying to solve these problems at that level. And as the famous saying of a quote by Einstein is that you can't solve a problem at the level at which it was created. So that's why it keeps happening. We keep like trying to create peace by being violent. No, that's not, or we fight these wars like these quote terrorists, end quote, attack us. And then what do? Well, we blow them up and blow up their villages and ruin an entire country where people are, having to become displaced. And I mean, that's not going to solve the problem because that's at the level at which it was created. And yet that's being perpetuated because there are people who benefit from that, who benefit from the war. They make money from it. So they keep perpetuating it. But they can't stop the fact that we're waking up and that we're seeing that we don't want to solve. There is no solution at that level. We have to go to a higher vibrational dimension to no longer have this violence, no longer have this fear and this separate ego. This little separate self that thinks that that's all it is, and it's attuned to an identity, these different roles that it plays: mother, wife, teacher, exerciser, whatever. I mean, we have to expand beyond that. We're feeling the pull of that, and we're feeling our higher dimensions calling to us for that.
Yeah, and again, looking out and about, and we see what's happening. It's falling so fast that their escapades, their drama, has to get bigger and grandiose for them to even have a chance to barely hold on with their fingernails to the whole facade collapsing. It's collapsing, and they make bigger gestures to try to get it to work, and they all these different facades of trying to keep this dead weight afloat. I think it's collapsing. So I mentioned a moment ago, you had mentioned a few different ways, since the show's talking about wake up to your multidimensional self. What are some of those ways? What are the nuts and bolts? You did mention self-love, unconditional love, self-forgiveness.
Yes.
So all of these are different ways to become a part of that multidimensional wholeness. Yes.
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, and to expand your awareness to your multidimensional self. So, like meditation, is a way, just sitting and meditating on your breath and opening, and perhaps focusing on the heart and sensations of breathing in that area, or in other areas of the body, and maybe and also going into to kind of being aware of the I am, that the fact that with each breath, we are anchored in this present moment, in the now moment, because the now moment really is the portal to higher awareness. A lot of times we think that we have to do this real convoluted, guided meditation that, where we're going on a spaceship somewhere, what have you. But really, if we just focus in on the moment and on the breath, we can find ourselves in the present moment. The breath itself is a great anchor for the present moment, because there's not one moment where we're not breathing. So when we're aware of where, breathing, and we kind of then feel the energy in our body, and we begin to get real sensitive to our energy body just through simply breathing. And once we do that, and we really feel ourselves in the now moment as an energetic being, then we begin to expand. We can't help but expand our awareness. And then we become aware, and then insights come to us. We're not even when we're in the meditation, but perhaps later in the day, or in our dreams at night. We find ourselves attracting people that, as we raise our vibration, becoming aware of our energetic beingness, or our bodies, which is, again, raising our consciousness and awareness to higher dimensional selves. Then we start attracting people into our lives that are doing the same thing, or have already done that. Teachers come to us, when the student's ready, the master appears, that kind of thing. And so just very simply, meditation is a fabulous way of raising your vibration and becoming aware that we're more than just these physical bodies, and that or these physical roles we play in our life, or these different functions that we play for other people.
Let me ask you this, Suzanne. My name is John Doe, and I hear you have this program you're selling, right? So I want you to sell me. And what you're offering is this program called Being Aware of Your Multidimensionality. Why would I want, if I have a decent life, I'm happy, I have a good wife, I have a good job, I have nice kids, and I'm a little better than most of the average people. I have a good life. Why do I want to buy your multidimensionality rhetoric? Why? What's in it for me? What is the big hype about being multidimensional and aware of that fact?
Well, I mean, if you, John Doe, are very comfortable and content where you are, then by all means, just flow with that for as long as you want. There's no judgment there. That's absolutely as it should be. But if you are curious about the adventure of being so much more than you think you are, and where that leads, and where that could lead into amazing experiences for yourself, better health, and if you have a sense of sort of community awareness and wanting to be good in your community, or help others, one of the best ways we can do that is by by really starting with ourselves and becoming whole people, whole multidimensional selves. Because this actually energetically shifts the energy of the whole planet. Each time one of us shifts gears into a higher dimension and we become more aware, then we're actually adding to the higher vibration on the planet itself and in our collective consciousness as human beings. So again, if other people don't really matter to you other than your own little family and your your own sort of little insular life, which again, there's no judgment there, then yeah, don't worry about it. But if you have, again, it's some curiosity and you want to like have some amazing adventures and feel more heart connected, if you can even imagine that whatever love you feel right now could expand and be even greater into blissful feelings and blissful emotions, then yes, by all means, buy the program or get on the program, get with the program, and this will actually help the whole collective consciousness.
A couple of years ago, I had a sleep experience when I was sleeping for 8 hours. Within 8 hours, I lived 3 weeks. The first part of the experience, I became aware that I had a wife, I had children, I had a job, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever the job was. I would wake up, I'd go to work, carry out my task, come home, have supper with the family, hang out, watch some tube, go back to sleep. And I lived in this reality for 2 weeks. Okay, you know how that when you're waking up from your night's sleep, even though you're not awake yet and you're still not really sleeping, that in between state when you feel that tug of coming back to the world. Well, after this 2 weeks of living in this reality, I felt that tug and start thinking to myself, "Oh wow, that was a pretty intense dream. Now I'm coming to the real world." Well, in that second level of consciousness, I was awake thinking that this is my life. I had a wife, I had children, I had a job, and I lived a week in that experience. And then after that was done, I felt the pull and the tug yet again, only to come to a state of consciousness in this, quote, real world, the real three-dimensionality where Keith Anthony Blanchard lives. Would you say that would be, yeah. So I lived 3 weeks in 8 hours. That was within itself. So the dream within a dream within my life, would this be considered a remembering or an awareness of other lives, or would this be considered a multi-dimensional experience, or would both be true?
Well, did it feel like a remembering to you, or did it just feel like, gosh, this is me in another experience?
It felt like me. It felt like a fragment of my wholeness in another experience. Yes.
Well, then there you go. Then what you just answered your question. It's you were experiencing another fractal, so to speak, or fragment or dimension of you, in another timeline, lifetime. Rather than saying past life or future life, we can just say, well, they're all happening at the same time because they are.
Yes.
And so that's what you were doing. That's very cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, but I can tell you this: when I was in the experience, I felt, I wouldn't use the word asleep, but I just felt like your average person who had a daily job, who lives in that kind of grind, so to speak. And also in the second experience. Now, what was more cool for me, since we're talking about wholeness and multidimensionality, was not really per se having the first experience and the second experience. The best part of it for me was waking up in my actual bedroom with the level of awareness to realize I had both of those experiences, which is my level of awareness encompassing those two experiences versus being in those two experiences, was realizing I just had two experiences within themselves, and come to that state of realization. Because when I was in those two experiences, there was no self-realization. I was just me living those lives. When I actually woke up into the bedroom was the realization of such wholeness.
So you, as Keith Blanchard, were able to witness in the Keith Blanchard life, you were a witness and observer. You are aware of those other two, but were they aware of you?
Yes.
They were. Interesting.
So do
This
you
is
have
fascinating.
experiences like this in your life, be it in sleep states of consciousness or in meditations? Do you get glimpses of your wholeness? Obviously you do. That's why we're having this conversation. Yes. Is there something you can share with us that would kind of help ground it for our listeners about your wholeness experiences?
Okay, yes. I mean, I've had experiences where I will be in the midst of doing something like in waking life, and with no work, with no intention on my part to expand or anything, then all of a sudden my focus shifts and I find that I'm way aware. I'm still aware of me, Susannah Furr, but then there's a whole broader experience that then overlays on top of this one. And I would say, not what I'm talking about is not necessarily an experience of seeing me in another timeline, although my most recent one was where I had experience of being in the mountains in North Carolina by myself. I was on a hike, and I became aware of a presence with me. And all my life I'd been told by psychics that, oh, you communicate with fairies, don't you? And I was like, oh, no, I'd like to, but I'm not really aware of that. And so I was just walking, and all of a sudden I felt this very strong presence, and I went up to a tree and touched it, and then I immediately was a part of the fairy dimension. Okay, so that's another dimension. That's another reality that I became aware of, and that I began to see the vision. I began to see images and see things, and how, this one particular fairy was living at that moment. And I then became aware of, oh, that's another dimension of me. That's the fairy, Susannah. See what I'm saying? So that's my latest example, I would say, for that. It was very wonderful. And then I began to realize, I think wait, let me go back up. And in the past, over the last few years, I've had moments where I've become very, very much aware of what I would call my highest possible future self, who, again, in other words, it's like Susannah Furr in maybe 10, 20 years down the road. And I can very much feel her feeding me, giving me energy, nurturing me, telling me, do this, do that. This is the highest path for you, so do this and do that. And I call upon her when I'm I'm at a fork in a road and I'm going, oh my God, which one am I supposed to do here? Where do I go? And I will call upon my highest possible future self, who lives in this different dimension all at the same time with my fairy self and all these other selves that I, these different times I'm aware of. And she will then I will ask her for advice. And if I don't get it in that moment, it will come in a dream later on, or when I pick up my tarot cards and I do a little spread and the answer comes to me that way, or just flat out just get an answer. So that's the way I experience my multidimensionality, and it's continuing to grow and continuing to evolve.
Today, my guest on Center of Light is Susannah Furr, and we are speaking about wake up and become your multi-dimensional self. 888-919-2355. 888-919-2355 is the number you dial to get on the show to speak to me. Yes, your host of Center of Light Radio, and Susannah Furr, my phenomenal guest. Hello, Daria in the chat room. Hello, Don Danny, and hello, Dana and MJ and Bot and a few others in there. Thank you for being here. Susannah, would you please give out your contact information about what you're up to, how the audience can find you, and your fabulousness?
Well, hi, everybody. That was sweet. Hi, everybody. Okay, well, you can reach me. You can go to my website, www.nowawakenow.com, or you can get on my email, sfur33@gmail.com. to contact me if you have any questions, or if you are interested in me coming and speaking to you or to a group. I also do, this year in particular, I've started taking about 8 or 9 crystal singing bowls on tours with me. The bowls and I go to different communities. We've been traveling the Southeast. And that's the other way I was going to mention, is a way of raising one's vibration, is to sit and soak up the sounds of these amazing crystal singing bowls that help to balance the whole energy system, and to activate parts of the energy system that need activating, and to help raise the vibration, and to help people to have an experience of the multi-dimensional selves. So if you're interested in that, contact me again, www.nowawakenow.com, or sfurr33@gmail.com to bring me to your community, to your group, to your meditation circle, whatever, drum circle. And I would be happy to bring my bowls and bring myself and bring information. We could have a wonderful time. So just let me know. And also, if you just want to privately message,
go ahead, dear. Go ahead, dear.
And also, if you just want to privately message me, just go ahead and do that on through the email or the website.
If you've not had an opportunity yet to experience crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, singing bowls, take the time in your life to pursue it. Your vibration will increase. You will feel that connection. We look at the word wholeness, or whole, derived from the word holy. You look at Scripture. Scripture says omnipresence. Look at the definition. Look it up. Present in all places at all times. And if God isn't present in all places, if God is present in all places at all times, and it's part of me, or it is me, because I'm not separated from that which is. So multi-dimensionality, it's everywhere. So the purpose for me of moving into that experience is to experience your larger self, which has to bust open doors of bliss, ecstasy, consciousness, being able to create your life with mere thought versus effort and struggle and stress and strain. So it's all about raising our vibrations and our frequencies, meditation, singing bowls, self-forgiveness, self-love, loving other people, forgiving other people. So these are all ways we can become conscious of who we really are at our essence, and which helps us to move out of the muck of human reality into that which is a divine reality. Yes?
Yes. And, I want to add some other ways, like dancing, movement, yoga, the Sufis, the whirling dervishes. I mean, that's all about raising the vibration and expanding their awareness, and then putting that out into the universe. Music, you know full well, Keith, how music can raise our vibration, not just the singing bowls, but also just listening to a song. How it moves us, it opens our hearts. Anytime we are focused on our heart area in self-love and in loving others, then we've raised our vibration. There's just so many ways. Any kind of artistic endeavor, painting, when people sit and when you're sitting and you're doing some kind of hobby, that at the same time it brings you into focus. And if you can add to that, let's say if you just do crochet and you sit there and you're aware of your breathing and you're crocheting and your hands creating and weaving this beautiful love. I mean, there's so many creative ways to come out of the funk of thinking that we're just these little separate cells. And let me give you an image to work with here. So right now, most of us operate like we're like a little cell, let's say a cell in the body, in the human body, let's say a liver cell. And so we're working around all these other little liver cells, and but we're just all into our own little thing, and we're not, we're aware of the other liver cells, but we're not, we're just insular, where everything is about us and the ego, that's our ego, the human ego. And then at some point we become aware that there's if we worked more closely with these other liver cells, that that there's this greater being that we're working for. Oh, there's this liver. And then all of a sudden we become aware that we are a cell within this organ. Okay. And then that's a huge expansion, like you were talking about, bliss and joy. Okay, then imagine this. Then when we become aware of we are a part of this liver, and that we really holistically are the liver. Then we become aware that we're just an organ in this amazing human body. Okay, with all these other organs, and that's how it goes. I mean, we just keep expanding and expanding and expanding the definition and our identity of who we are, and that can only bring us joy. Beyond joy, wisdom, and experiences that we could never even dream of, that we don't even know of yet. So we go from a little separate liver cell to the liver itself, and then to we are the human body, and then beyond that. So that's the experience that we're talking about here: the multidimensional selves, working to and having an intention of doing that for ourselves, and that then becomes really beneficial to the energy all around us, because it's all frequency, it's all vibration. When we raise our frequency and vibration, then we raise it all around us. It's a ripple effect, and it moves out, and that affects others, and then they grow and they evolve, and entrainment and resonance and harmony and all of that. So really, it all comes back to us doing our own work. And, when we become really focused on, we've got to get out there and we've got to make other people learn and do these things. And yet if we don't do that for ourselves, start with ourselves, with the self-love, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, and raising our own vibration, then we're really not going to, we can do good things, but if we're not starting with ourselves, that's when we really can.
Yeah, you cannot write a check and expect it to be a good check without bouncing. If you don't have the cash, the currency, whatever it is in your account to give it forward, you can write $1,000 check anytime you want. But if there's nothing in that account to back that up, it's just going to bounce. So when we become aware of these different aspects of self, we now have the ability to implement the power that is entailed of all these different aspects of self. So now we can incorporate those different aspects of self because we are aware of them. And so that puts us closer to creator status, which in turn allows us to create the exact, not only life for ourselves that we want, but for those who are around us, for the world, the dimension, the universe, whatever it is that we are a part of. So for me, my joy, my path is always about expansion. Being in India again, I had the blessed opportunity to experience what it's like to be expanded beyond, and I am absolutely sure and convinced that to the degree I was opened up, there are many more levels of expansion that could be had. And what I experienced was pretty profound in and of itself. And that was probably not the fullest of what I could have experienced. From the chat room, Don Danny says, I have the parallel dimension feeling sometimes. I hope my other selves don't take me too seriously. Very, very cool. Very cool.
Danny, was that his name? Danny?
Don Danny.
Hello? Don Danny. Sorry, Don. I've had the experience of feeling like in this reality here, being stuck in a certain way, and like say emotionally, like continuing the same pattern that I can't seem to get out of, behavior pattern and emotional pattern. And then it dawned on me one day, I thought, oh, I'm going to blame this on a parallel dimensional self of mine who is probably really like perhaps total slave and victim in some situation. I just could feel that the reason why, let's say, I keep getting stuck in victim consciousness in this lifetime is because, or this timeline or this dimension, is because there are a lot of me's that are enslaved and really victimized in horrible ways. And so no wonder it's very hard for me to break out of that in this one. And so what I find myself doing is through meditation or through a movement meditation, sending love and liberation and a sense of freedom to all parts of me so that they can release that victim consciousness, and therefore I can release it easier.
So let me ask you this. Okay. I'm looking at different aspects of myself, past, present, future. It doesn't matter the timeline, but I'm now aware enough to where I'm starting to experience different parts of myself consciously. When I look at an aspect of myself in another life that may be wounded, because I'm now becoming multidimensional, do I try to heal that because I'm now multidimensional and aware of that fact? Do I just unconditionally love that wounded part of me and just leave it alone?
Well, I think that is healing, to unconditionally love. I think that's the healing right there.
So does it change the me that was in that other paradigm, or does it just free me up in the current one? In other words, I can love my wounds in that parallel of my life that taught me all those lessons all those eons ago, or does my becoming aware change it?
I think it does, because think about it. Think of all the stories you've heard and your own experiences of, let's say, you feel the presence of a master, of some light being comes to you and gives you wisdom and love. Well, who's to say that's not a much higher, more expanded part of a version of you? And don't you find that those experiences are so healing for you, and you just treasure them and you remember them all your life? You go, oh my God, I know that there's hope because this great being came to me. That great being was another another part of you.
That is absolutely true.
Yes,
because
by all means, you in this life can go to other parts of you who are more downtrodden, or let's say way separate, don't have any idea that there's any other way to be, and you can go and be that light being.
Yes, Susannah, because when I was in India,
that crazy?
I tell this story many times. When I was in India and I'm on the ashram, Sai Baba puts his hands on my hand and I started to expand. I started to shift. I was me looking up, down, looking up towards him standing. But I also had a shift in perspective. I was actually looking through his eyes down on a small personality self, which I know as me. So I had that double view. I had that 180 peripheral spin to where not only was I the smaller self, but also the greater self, experiencing that. So yeah, and then when you start having both of those kinds of experiences simultaneously, there's a feedback loop that begins to happen, and that is what caused the expansion that I mentioned a moment ago. Well, you put a microphone in front of a speaker. What's happening? The reason you hear that noise is because the microphone is picking up the sound through the speaker, which goes through the microphone and expresses itself through the speaker, which picks it up through the microphone. And when this kind of regeneration begins to happen, there's a feedback loop. And so that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is not about being afraid. Anxiety is about being afraid of being afraid. And so when that kind of energy begins to curve within itself, there's an expansion process that happens, and barriers begin to be broken and walls begin to collapse and all these really cool things. But other than, anxiety is kind of the negative part of it, but those aspects of yourself begin to feedback and you begin to become aware of that expansion. So that's really, really cool. I absolutely support that beautiful idea.
Yes. Well, and I love the way the description of the feedback loop. That's exactly a beautiful example. And so it's really exciting when we expand like this, and just in this conversation, just having this conversation, we are activating that expansion and expanding into awareness of our multidimensionality. By the way, there's a lot of people writing about this. There's books that are out there, articles that are out there, so Google them. I haven't written anything yet, but I'm happy to tell you about others like Barbara Hanclough.
Yes.
What a wonderful book called Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. That's a great one. Uh, there was like, let's see. There's a PhD called, her name is Suzanne Carroll, and she wrote a wonderful article called What's Multi-Dimensional Consciousness? So I'd check her out, Suzanne Karroll. What is dimensional consciousness? The more you can read about this and understand it. And the thing is that we were never taught this. We're not taught this. We're actually, through our educational system and social engineering and conditioning, it's all been about dumbing us down and keeping us one-dimensional or two or three. Basically three, and not wanting us to know more about these multidimensional selves of ours, because again, like I said earlier, we would not make good consumers if that were the case. We'd be all these creators, right. You know what I'm saying? So please, we all need to educate ourselves and have these experiences and meditate and pray and sing and dance and yoga and work with crystals and writing and journaling and twirling around. Do whatever it takes. Be in nature. Nature is a wonderful place to expand your awareness of self. And anything that will get us out of our separate ego identity and realizing that we're so connected, not only to our own self in so many ways, but that to each other. Because ultimately we are pretty much all one. Like when we discover that we are from a little liver cell, all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, I'm this humongous body. That's filled with billions of cells, that I'm a part of billions of cells that create this one thing. And that is what we're going through right now. We are birthing into that.
Yeah, totally agreed, because when we become aware that you're the cell, then you become aware that you're the body, then you become aware that you one part of a city, then you one part of a state, one part of a country, one part of a world. And so but I think that we're fortunate because of the inner plane, we're able to skip some of those steps and go directly to the cosmic. Mm-hmm. And I think that, many people believe in the miracles and the who we are really at our essence, but it's about such experiences, as we're talking about experiencing the multidimensional self, which drives that conviction home that says, oh my God, everything I believed is now true. And when you have that kind of conviction, when you have that kind of power, the things you want to bring to your life, just the fact that your level of belief is, well, it's no longer belief, it's a knowing. And so the manifestations begin to lift. And because the manifestations begin to happen bigger, stronger, faster, your conviction climbs. And because your conviction is still climbing, the manifestations get bigger, stronger, faster. And so it's a teeter-totter thing that happens, and you begin to expand. And so I think that is the importance of diving in through meditation. Another way that we mentioned earlier was self-forgiveness, self-love, and all these different ways of raising our vibration so we can begin to bring home. Actually, we can go home.
Yes. We welcome ourselves home. We become whole in home. It's just an amazing process. Have you ever heard the concept, and I really think this is true, it's like, well, why do we choose, if we're these great, amazing beings that, these higher dimensional beings, then why do we choose to really be only focused in these lower dimensions? And, why did I choose to come to Earth? What am I doing on this planet? It's like a prison planet, la, la, la. And I really love this, and this really resonates with me. It feels true to me that it's because just to experience the joy of reuniting with who we really are, just that reunion, that all of a sudden that expansion, to be able to experience after so long of suffering as a separate little being, and then all of a sudden realizing or growing into this realization that, oh, I am this amazing being of light here, that experience is what it's all about, and it's why we do it.
What if after we go through the entire process of forgetfulness and we come into the final awareness, can you imagine the explosion of light that happens? Is that explosion a star coming into birth? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and what else would eternal beings do for fun? You have everything. You are everything. Is it possible that what eternal beings do for fun is forget? What other game can there be?
That's
I
it.
can't think of any other game that can possibly happen that create the joy, because we already know everything that is to be known. So the only game possible to be played is to forget.
I really think that's true. I do. I really think that's it. And it's so delightful, to consider and to feel.
Susannah Furr, thank you for being a beautiful, awesome, powerful guest yet again here on Center of Light Radio. Give out your contact once again for our listening audience and leave us with a final thought. We have about 2 minutes.
Okay, my contact is www.nowawakenow.com. My name is Susannah Furr, SUSANNAHFURR. I do have a Facebook page, Now Awake Now, so you can look that up and join me in that. Final words. Oh my goodness. Well, let's just all remember who we are. Let's remember who we really are, these multidimensional beings full of joy and light, and let's be this wonderful supernova that just explodes with the realization. It's been such a pleasure. I always enjoy it, Keith, being with you. Thank you for having me on. And I'm sending out lots of blessings to everyone listening and beyond. Thank you very much.
Well, you've always been dear to me. I've been knowing you probably 6, 7, maybe give or take years. And I would love to do a double presentation with you. That would feed off each other. That would just be a blast. So
I know.
If that comes along, I'll let you know. But if that comes along for you and to let me know, please inform me, because I would love to be a part of that.
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Miss Susannah Furr, a powerful guest, always a fun guest here on the Center of Light Radio. Remember, when you lay down at night, nothing to do, you breathe. Try to tap into that multidimensional self. See what it is you're really made of. I'm going to close with this from the chat room. Don Danny says, we are in physical form to learn things only found in the physical plane, like the touch of a loved relation's hand. He also says, I feel that love is a substance. It fills the spaces between molecules. I also feel this substance as my soul, and therefore have more than enough for all. Very well.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to close with. Very, very good job, my friend.
Awesome.
Keith Anthony Blanchard, Center of Light Radio, Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And next week on my show, we're going to have Gerard Artson. He's from the Netherlands. And the show will be a gathering of the forces of light. We'll be speaking about light beings as well as, quote, extraterrestrials. I will be seeing you next week. Peace, love, and light to you. Have a blissful Monday and an awesome week.